started, it's my pleasure to introduce Pat Pakos. Pat is currently a support broker and an active member of the ARC of Massachusetts. He's been involved with transition planning for many years and is a renowned trainer and advisor in terms of transition issues for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Pat also is serves on the statewide advisory council for the Department of Developmental Services, and she's also a parent and has gone through the transition process and has made it out alive. So she's your known that everything's going to be okay. So, anyways, it's great to have you tonight. So, Pat, why don't you take it away?
Welcome. In the next hour, you're about to learn the important timelines necessary for a seamless and successful transition from school into the adult world. Please do not worry about taking notes. I have a lot of information to share with you, but at the end of the webinar, you will find a link to the ARC of Massachusetts website that will enable you to download the timelines. Also, at the end of the webinar is a slide with a flyer announcing the second statewide transition conference for parents being held on October 3rd, 2015 at Best Western Hotel in Marlborough, Mass. Okay, let's begin. So why should you be aware of timelines? In Massachusetts, the transition process begins at age 14. The government has transition beginning at 16, but Massachusetts made the decision that it should begin at 14, and this is really essential and important. If you start to think of other typical kids and when they begin to enter middle school and they look at the courses that they have to take and the families decide what they should take, and if they don't do this, then the next year they can't take the next course, etc. And it's all the decisions are all leading to when they leave school and what they're going to be doing with their lives. A vision is so essential of your child and what their life will look like when they ultimately leave school. So we call that a post-secondary vision. And our approach is really a person-centered approach, or we ask you to think of your child and their interest, their skills, their preferences, who they are, and how these things can be developed even further in school and at home and in the community. The parents are essential members of the IEP team. You know your children better than anybody does, and you have so much valuable information to share with the team. So it's really critical that when your child begins to enter the transition period, that you try as hard as you can to be active members of the team. Transition is a journey, and it's a long journey, but it's a process. And you might say, well, gosh, why do we have to begin at 14, when our child may be in school until age 22? But it takes a very, very long time, and there really is a reason why it should begin at 14 or even earlier if the team decides it should begin earlier than that. So what we're doing is helping your child prepare for adult life, for the time when they leave the school system and enter the adult world. Now, to back training and what it's all about, there are federal laws and there are state laws. A little bit about federal law IDEA 2005. 2004, the then President Bush called upon a commission of excellence on special ed to take a look at special ed throughout the United States. In particular, they focused on transition and outcomes. I have to say that the results were really disastrous. So in 2005, 2005 was presented to special ed throughout the United States. And as part of the study that was done, they found that 7% of young people leaving school and even 2 or 3 years after leaving school with disabilities were unemployed. Found that transition services were not being implemented as they should to the fullest extent, and really felt that results were not happening. And so that was the reason for IDEA 2005. Okay, so as a result, the federal government is asking school systems throughout the country to have measurable post-secondary goals based upon age-appropriate transition assessments on the IEP. So when we talk about post-secondary goals, we're talking about look at a child's life when they leave school and where you'd like to be and you would like them to be, whether it's working for education, where they'll be living, how they'll be functioning in the community, et cetera. And the age-appropriate transition assessments are very different than the 3-year assessments that are done in our school systems as your child goes through the school. They're assessments in the areas of employment, vocational skills, independent living skills, communication skills, and these assessments aren't done just once, like at age 14 or 15. There are many of them that are available, and they should be done throughout the child's transition period from age 14 up to age 22. Okay. The federal government also said they want results. Okay, very important. They say that the planning and the goals must really be based on the individual student's needs, strengths, interests, and preferences. Now, Massachusetts laws. First, Chapter 285 of the Act 2008, the law that transition should begin at age 14 or sooner. Chapter 688, which is called the Turning 22 law, says that the system should initiate the 688 referral form, and they send the form to either human service agency that they feel will be able to provide supports for students with significant disabilities that would need support once they leave school, to the appropriate agency. This is usually done 2 years before an individual leaves school, and that when individuals are found eligible to receive services through a human service agency, whether it be DDS or Mass Commission for the Blind or Mass Rehab Commission, what is important to know is that it is not a continuation of special ed services in any way, and it is not an entitlement for services. Okay, so the referral comes from the school system to the adult service agency. An individual transition plan is developed, and that individual transition plan states what supports and services individual should be receiving and from what agency. So those are the federal laws and the Massachusetts laws related to transition. So let's start to talk about what kinds of things should be happening in different ages. So we're really entering in the timelines now. So ages 13, 14, and 15. Okay. When we talk to families, we ask them to, if possible, promote appropriate behavior at home and in different social situations, to allow as much independence as possible with your children, to provide as many opportunities to make choices and decisions, and they can be the simplest choices and decisions, from, what outfit to wear, to take either a bath or shower, to have either oatmeal or cereal, hard cereal for breakfast, or eggs, or have for dinner, but just to provide a lot of opportunities for your kids to make choices and decisions. Next, to just think about work and talk about work with your children. Let them know the kind of work that you do, and that other people that know the kind of work that they do. When you take your children out into the community, take them into shops and stores and point out jobs that people are doing, whether it's it's working in Pizza Hut or in CVS or in the grocery store, etc. But even at these young ages, to talk about value of work. And what should be happening in school at this time are interest surveys and vocational assessments being done on children to begin to get ideas of where their interests and their talents are. Think about volunteer jobs. So, you're beginning, it sort of follows with the value of work. You're helping them understand, what work is about, maybe things around the house and get paid to do it, or you may have a neighbor that needs their lawn cut, or somebody to bring their mail into them, or just other jobs in the community. If you as a family volunteer at any races or a church or whatever, think about engaging your children in doing these things also. Continuing with the same age group, and as a parent works on transition to become informed about the process of transition, there are continuously workshops being offered throughout the year, either from various chapters, Mass Families Organizing for Change, the Federation for Children with Special Needs, but be aware of them and attend as many as you can. I've done workshops for the past 10 years for families, and some of the same families come back year after year, and they say to me, we only absorbed as much as I could at that particular time, and I'm back ready to learn a little bit more. And so it's sort of a continuous learning process. Help your child to become a self-advocate. It's okay to make mistakes. I mean, that's how we learn. Help them take risks, again, choices, and help to teach them to stand up for themselves. I give an example of, once you put your child on a school bus or a van in the morning, you're not there to speak up for them. And when they're in school, you're not there either. And so, it's important to really help our kids learn to be their own self-advocates and ask for help when they need it. Next, and this might surprise you, but it is a law that from the age of 14 on, the child should attend their IEP meetings. And at these young ages, at 14, 15, it's important to really begin the process of helping them participate in the IEP. Talk to them about what it's about. Ask the teachers if the teachers can help them work in school and explain to them what the IEP is all about. Give them some responsibilities at the IEP meetings, even if it's only introducing the people that are there. I know of one particular school system where the teacher, she's extraordinary. She might spend 3 weeks before the child's IEP helping the child develop a PowerPoint presentation of who they are, what they've done in school this year, and what they hope to be doing the next year. And then the child presents that PowerPoint at their IEP meeting. Another thing is to really help your child understand his or her disability. And, I know that that's a bit scary, but I'm thinking of more if your child is able to understand their disability somewhat, or able to understand when they need to ask for help, if they can't complete a certain task or whatever, if they know that they ask for help, then their own self-advocate also. Next comes interest surveys, transition and independent living assessments. I mentioned earlier the transition assessments, and they really look at the skills. They look at what the kids can do, not what they can't do. And the emphasis is on vocational skills, communication skills, independent living skills. But these type of surveys and assessments really begin when your child is in this age group. Okay. Oopsie. Okay. And the next thing is, I just want to talk a little bit about the transition planning form and the IEP. At the age of 14 or before the 15th birthday, a transition planning form is supposed to be developed for each student. And on the transition planning form is the opportunity to write a post-secondary vision, which is the vision of your child, what they will be doing at home, in the community, in the work field, or whatever it is as they leave school. And so have the opportunity to participate in the development of that plan. And then also, you're asked, it comes from the federal government, to think of a post-secondary educational goal, a post-secondary vocational goal, and they say, if possible, independent living goals. Well, I think that everybody, even typical kids, continue to need independent living skills, whether it's money management, mobility, skills, whatever it is. But anyway, what is important to know with the transition planning form is that is not a legal document. And if the vision, the post-secondary vision, and the post-secondary goals that are written on that transition planning form must then transfer it onto the IEP in order for the school system to have responsibility to implement them. The last topic in this age group is it's really essential, if possible, to develop a good working relationship with your school system and with human service agencies if you're working with them while your kids are at this age. So on now to ages 16 and 17. The first item on here is, again, getting closer to the age when the child is leaving school. Your child has probably developed more skills, and you have a better idea of possibly what a post-secondary vision is, where your child sees himself or herself, or where you would like to see your child when they leave school. Okay. Next, encourage self-advocacy skills. Now, you may see me repeating this over and over, but I just feel that it's terribly important for our kids to be to be good self-advocates. It's time to begin to develop a long-term plan to cover educational, vocational, and independent living skills. Again, you look at the transition planning form, and you're asked to think this. So talking maybe 5 or 6 years down the road, but by putting vision on paper, the school system knows what it is that you're working on, and along with the results of assessments and surveys, it helps them to develop the appropriate goal objectives on the IEP. Okay, help your child to participate even further in their IEP meetings in a meaningful way as they possibly can. Okay, and also it's time to think about first job experience, and it may not be a paid job. It may be shadowing somebody. It might be an internship. It might be working for neighbors or for friends. But again, expanding from the volunteer experience, if your child begins to earn money from doing work, they begin to associate the importance of work and being paid for doing work and do meaningful things and helping people and so on, and it helps them in their focus on what they're going to do once they leave school. Then in thinking of your child's IEP, just to be sure, especially at this age, that the IEP addresses all the areas where skills are needed to make the biggest difference in your child's ultimate independence. That's really what we're looking for. On with ages 16 and 17, a good suggestion, and I get this from the Federation for Children, is to develop a transition portfolio for you, and within that portfolio, put schoolwork, accomplishments, documents, whatever, that all relate to your child's process, beginning age 14 and leading up to age 22. Okay. Again, continue to have transition assessments done if they're necessary. If your child hasn't accomplished what it is you're hoping that he or she will accomplish, maybe it's time for another transition assessment to look and to see what else needs to be developed. Ages 16 and 17 is also a good time to begin to gather information about federal and state benefits and resources. And here I'm talking about SSI and Mass Health. Is your child eligible for SSI? And this is learning about it during stages. To learn, look at family support centers that are throughout the state and the autism support centers and see if they can help you in any way. Is your child eligible for personal care attendant PCA support? And look into the community for various recreation activities and social activities for your child. Okay? And it's a time to explore looking to guardianship and its options. So, everybody needs full guardianship. There are many, many options. And options are like have health proxy or having power of attorney. And there's something new which is really kind of exciting called supported decision making, which is happening. There's a pilot project of that going on in our state right now, and but it's important to begin to think about it because at age 18 is usually around the time where you have to make these kinds of decisions. It's a time to begin to think about, is your child going to be eligible for Department of Developmental Service eligibility as an adult? Now, they may be eligible as a child, but there's a process that they have to go through, and it usually begins around age 17 and a half. DDS normally will send letters to parents that they want to start the process to see if the young people are eligible for adult services through DDS. So just be mindful of that. And let me see. Okay, and this is really, really important. Think about relationships and friendships. Okay, I remember the story of the shaman who was in a life skills class, and there was only one other guy in the class and 4 women, and the 2 fellas didn't get along at all. And the parents were really concerned because they were saying, well, he doesn't have another male friend, and what happens when he leaves school, and what are we going to do about it? And they were fortunate to participate in an ARC recreation program. He found 2 or 3 guys that he really got along with well. And the family began to encourage those relationships and friendships by inviting one of the guys to go to the high school sports events or to come to the house and have a pizza or to go to the movies or whatever it is. But, a number of kids are not in schools within their own community. They may be collaborative schools or in private schools, but age 22 or earlier, when they leave the school system and go back into their communities, you have to kind of think about, well, who will they do some activities with, or, we're friends. And so this is time to begin to think about that and to think about maybe what you can do to help encourage friendships and relationships. So here's our friendship brings out the best in us, which isn't hard since it's already perfect. Okay. Now, I just want to recap a little bit. As your kids are nearing age 18, these are really things to continue and to understand. Okay. One, age of majority. And you may all know what that is, but in the state of Massachusetts, when an individual reaches the age of 18, they're considered an adult and fully responsible for their activities. Well, at age 17 in the school system, in school systems, a letter is normally sent to parents asking parents if they want their children to be totally responsible for their IEPs, or if they want shared rights, or if the decision be made to delegate full responsibility to the parents as far as the IEP is concerned, any school reports and so on. So 18, again, then it's important to think about guardianship and options, because now is really the time to make those decisions and to follow up on them. It's also time to lawyers that are knowledgeable about special needs trusts and wills. And a special needs trust, someone have to have a lot of money to initiate a special needs trust. But what the trust does is it allows additional monies to be put aside um, to the life of the individual when they're an adult. And you really have to find lawyers that are very knowledgeable about special needs trust in order to do this. But this is the time to follow up on that also. It's also a time to consider talking to a financial planning person about planning for your own future, but also your child's future, and how best to sort out money issues. Age 18, and if you think your child is eligible to receive SSI, which is Social Security money, to apply to go to the Social Security office, you can do it online also, or to visit the Social Security office and see if your child is eligible. One of the most important criteria to be able to receive SSI is that an individual is not able to work independently for 20 hours a week. So individual does become eligible for SSI, they automatically become eligible for Mass Health. If you haven't heard from DDS or Mass Rehab, another agency, human service agency at this time, to find out if your child is eligible for adult services, it's at age 18 to contact them and to say, why haven't I heard from you, and how can we start this process? So going with age 18, and I might be repeating a little of this, but again, apply for SSI and Mass Health. And this is interesting. I don't know if you know this, but all males in the state of Massachusetts, United States, have to register for selective service at the age of 18. Okay. At age 18, it's time to register your kids to vote. We can always use more votes. Again, I'm repeating, but again, it's time to really look into guardianship and options, and search for lawyers that are familiar with special needs trust and wills. And if you're not sure where to find out this information, the employer have lists of lawyers that they will recommend, so you get that information from them, or for other families that you know have gone through the process. Okay. And to, again, help your child plan for his or her life goals. The last item here on this slide is look at AFC. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with AFC, but that stands for Adult Family Care in this situation. It's also called Adult Foster Care, which is a little bit different. But with Adult Family Care, it's a Medicaid program which is additional support, additional monies, and a family applies. The ARCs are adult family care providers, and there are certain criteria, and there are two different levels of adult family care, and a family member who decides to be the responsible for the adult family care receives a stipend, a daily stipend, and it can be $20 a day or $50 a day, and it's tax-free. What is important with adult family care is that both cannot be guardians. One parent can be a guardian, or if both parents are a guardian, or there's a grandparent living in the house, or an older sibling living in the house that wants to be an adult family care provider, they can apply for that. But so it's interesting, you know, if you're not aware of it, to look into it and see if your child is eligible. Okay, again, continuing, lots of things happen at age 18. We strongly recommend that you look into and apply for a Section housing voucher for your child. There are waiting lists in every community and housing authorities, and the waiting lists are oftentimes from 8 to 10 years. And you say, okay, well, you know, I want my child living elsewhere at age 18, but, well, you know, just from now when my child is 28, possible for my child to live elsewhere with support? And if so, get on a list. And you always have the option at age 18 to turn it, or when a voucher comes up, to turn it down. But it's something to really consider. Again, the emphasis on the IEP, especially as your child is getting older. And at 18, many students in school go into what they call a post-secondary program, and it's a little different. It's a bit different program than what they've experienced in school so far, and where the focus really on post-school goals will make the biggest difference in the life of your child. I mean, there's some school systems where the kids don't even go to school, the school between 18 and 22. They're out in the community all the time. They're working. They're volunteering. The gyms, they're visiting libraries, they're grocery shopping, they're playing meals, and so on. So the focus is more on activities of daily living and functional skills. So again, I'm repeating adult eligibility. So 18, you should have a pretty good idea whether your child is eligible or not. I'm again asking you to make sure your child has had work experience, and if possible, try really hard for your child to have work experience where they're receiving money. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Okay? Network with other parents that have been through the transition process. You learn an awful lot from other parents. That's cool. 688 referral happening around this time, which is designating what agency your child will be receiving services from. Actually, there are some students that even receive services from two agencies. It's not just one. Mass Rehab does short-term supports around employment, and ADS does long-term support. So it is possible for to receive supports initially through Mass Rehab and then ultimately transferring to DS for long-term supports. Okay. Service again. Okay. And to vote, again, I'm repeating what I mentioned before. Okay. So now we're up to ages 20 and 21. If this hasn't happened, it happened now. Chapter the 688 referral. If your child's staying in school until 22, the agencies really need a couple of years to have this information and to know that they will be serving your son or daughter. Okay, and let me see. So if you're found eligible for 688, and I had mentioned earlier, an individual transition plan is created. And so if you have seen one, and by the time, again, talk to the human service agencies and the school system and ask where this is. Okay. If your child has been found eligible for adult services, the adult service providers throughout your community and again around the communities that you live in. And these are organizations that receive funding from either the Department of Developmental Services or Mass Rehab or Mass Mission for the Blind. They're all different. They all provide different services. It's important to begin to explore what service providers are in the areas that you live in so that you have a pretty good idea. And not that you're guaranteed that your child will go to these particular providers, but again, I said they're very different. Some of them do some really extraordinary things, and others do so extraordinary things. So, and also it's important to talk to other families and to see what other families have chosen and where their sons and daughters are, and if they're happy with where they are and what their kids are doing during the daytime. Okay, so think again about community membership and involvement. Does your child belong to a gym in town? Are they active in church? Are they volunteering at the senior center or at the food bank or whatever it is? But think more about how involved your child is in the community or could be. I think all of us as parents want our communities to welcome our kids and to invite them in, but we've got to reach out to the community with our kids for them to get to know them. Okay. I want to reiterate enough, try to ensure a job with pay if that's possible. One reason that there are many reasons why, but one reason in particular, and this is as kids reach the age of 20 and 21, is if the school system has found a job for your child where they're receiving pay, the child likes the work that they're doing and they're pleased with it, the ability exists that that job could continue when they leave school at age 22. And it could be, 4 hours a week. I'm not talking about a full-time job, which would be wonderful, or even 20 hours a week. It could be 4, it could be 6. But if the job site is willing to continue hiring your child when they leave school, there's a good possibility that if it's DDS or mass rehab, they will provide a one-on-one job coach for your child. So this is really something that I encourage you to do. The other thing is it's time to begin to think about finding adult primary physicians and dentists. And I know this is very difficult to do, and as children are young and we develop wonderful relationships with children's doctors and dentists and so on. But, when they become adults, it's time to think about seeing to adult doctors. I don't know if you're aware or not, but at Mass General Hospital, they have a clinic for adult individuals with Down syndrome and also a clinic for adults with autism. And it's important to talk to other families also to find out if other families are using various physicians or dentists and if they're pleased with them. Okay. Now we're up to age 21 and 22. The thing on the list is to the ITP meeting. The individual transition plan meeting happens prior to 9 months before leaving school. And if your child is eligible for Department of Developmental Services, the area office to see if an adult service coordinator has been assigned. They probably will say no to you, but it kind of gets going that you're interested and you know that your child needs to have an adult service coordinator. Now, if your child has served by DDS as a child, they had a children's coordinator, and at the age of 18 or sometimes it's 19, a transition coordinator took over the case of a child. But once a child leaves the school system, an adult service coordinator is assigned to be the caseworker for a child. So it's important to contact them to ask if they've come up with somebody. Okay? And you're so close to your child leaving school, age 21 to 22, it's really important to visit different, if you're lucky and your child has been granted residential supports. Again, residential supports are provided by all different kinds of agencies, and the supports are very different. And so it's really important to explore residential placements in your area to decide, if you want to work with this agency or that agency. And again, there's no guarantee that your child will end up going with them. At least you'll have a pretty good understanding of what is out there and what supports and services are available. And same thing with day programs. We have time to go into day programs and the kinds of programs that exist, but they're just, there are day habilitation programs, which are Medicaid programs that are offered by various agencies, and within these programs, it cannot work. But it could be programs where individuals are going out in the community and doing various things. There are also community-based programs, which are programs, and individuals are out in the community an awful lot and volunteering and so on. And then there's supported employment service also. So, you can get a list of all the agencies that are funded by DDS from their website, and it's broken down by region and area, and become familiar with the ones in your area. So really critical next is that all mandated services end at age 22. And I mean all. And so, the school system is mandated to provide services, but there are services that are mandated after age 22. And in addition to that, health services are not an entitlement, and they're only based on availability and funding. So that's another reason to try to find a real job for your kids. Okay, so here's the no entitlements here. So now, what to focus on as you go through the process of transition with your kids between 14 and 22. Let's kind of focus on the things that are the most important ways in which you can really help your child have a seamless transition from school to the adult world. Okay? And the first thing to focus on when they're going through transition is post-secondary education. There was a time when parents kids with intellectual disabilities said, well, my kid can never go to college. I'm not even going to think about it. But, there are over 200 colleges now in the United States that offer a secondary education for kids with intellectual disabilities. I don't know how many of you are aware of the ICE program here in Massachusetts, which is inclusive I'm drawing current enrollment. But there are a number of high schools in the state of Massachusetts that collaborate with colleges and community colleges to students between the ages of 18 and 22 to attend classes. And these are kids who have significant disabilities, and it's really exciting. So if that's something you'd like to explore, you can programs and we'll gather some terrific information about them. So secondary education. Think about vocational training too. What are your kids' skills, preferences? What are they good at? A man that I worked with loved to cook, and he was always helping his mom in the kitchen and his dad when his dad was barbecuing and so on. And he was in high school. He had a job once delivering magazines in a hospital, and he hated it. He hated walking the hallways and doing that. And then he had a job bagging groceries in a local grocery store, and he really hated that too. It wasn't until we did a person-centered plan on him, and we talked about the things that he really enjoyed, that he said, I really want to cook. So, behold, the school system got him a job working in a nursing home in the cafeteria. And the parents really began to think about, well, what additional training could he have beyond what school is offering to help him develop his interests and his skills in cooking? So think about that. The other area is just, really help your kids become independent as they possibly can be with all of their self-help skills. And by those, I mean, dressing themselves, feeding themselves, decisions and so on. It's just very important to help them become as independent as they can be. If you think they're capable of doing certain things, stick with it and help them do that, because down the road, other people are going to have to be paid additional money to help your kids do the things that they may actually be capable of doing. And think of the pride also that your kids would have in knowing that they really accomplish certain skills, even if it's only doing part skills. Okay, and help kids to be as independent as they can be. And next, just involve them again in the life of the community. Okay, social activities. Again, think of their life. Think of what they're going to do or would like to do. Maybe evenings when they come home, weekends, where they're going to go on vacation. They like to swim? Do they like to play golf? Do they like to bowl? Do they like to party? Do they like to go to movies and so on? And just think of what you can do to create a full life for your kids. Some of you are probably saying housing. Why do we even talk about housing? But no. You get to think about it. And you may say, well, my kid is going to live with me forever, but what if your kid wants to do what brothers or sisters do and did, go off to college or get an apartment and leave home and live with a friend and so on. So, it's it's time to kind of think about it. There are other things that might be more important. And just one thing to mention to you is that every other year there's a statewide housing conference in Massachusetts. It was last held last year, so there won't be one this coming year, but there will be one in 2016. And you will learn a tremendous amount of information about a variety of housing options for individuals. So think about that. Next, employment. Focus on employment, developing those skills that your kids have. Okay. And last is friendships again, which are so critical and important. Okay. So now I want to share with you a few things that you need to be aware of and the difference between school and the adult world. The first is there is a limited amount of funding available to provide supports and services, whether it's through the Department of Developmental Services or Mass Rehab or Commission for the Blind or whatever. So there's been, I'd say, an unlimited amount of money available when your child has gone through the school system, but there's a heck of a lot more money than there will be available when they're in the adult world. Next is you need to be aware of the state budget. Every year, the DCs and Mass Rehab have to start over again every year to try to get their budget for the coming year, and it is such a struggle. And so it's really important to become legislative advocates and to know your state senators and representatives and encourage them to support funding for our kids with disabilities. Important to know also is that education mostly stops, and I hate to say this because who is to say that at age 22 our kids will never be able to learn anything again, that they've learned everything that they're going to learn in their lifetime. But a lot of adult programs don't offer further education and training, and so sort out where your kids to go and what you want them to do. Just kind of find out what's happening in all these programs and see if education is continuing in some of them. Okay. Therapeutic services. Now, through school systems, kids receive OT, PT, speech and language, and so on, and not really available in the adult world other than through rehabilitation services, which is a Medicaid program. But the therapeutic services are consultative. It's not really one-on-one. The therapists work with the staff in the centers and help to give the skills to work with the individuals. So, if you want your kids to continue to receive therapeutic services, it's something that your insurance would have to pay for and done on the outside. Okay. There are unfortunately very few residential options available through the Department of Developmental Services, and only the young people with the most significant disabilities do get residential options. So you need to be aware of that there probably will be very few options along those lines available. Okay. Supported employment, again, I'll refer back to encouraging you to really try to get your school systems to find paid work for your kids. If you want your children to still continue working and they need support working, job that carries over once they leave school is really critical. Another option that happens is supported employment where maybe 4 or 5 individuals will be part of a enclave, and they'll go out and do work from the day program, maybe a couple of hours a day, 1 or 2 days a week, and oftentimes it's just like clean work or landscaping work. So there's not an awful lot of supported employment, and if it's something that you want your kids to do and they want to do it, you have to really be a strong advocate for it. Okay. Now to know is that the day is very short in the world. Programs usually start at 8:30 and they end at 2:30. And if you're a 2-parent family and both of you work, one of the things you have to consider is, all right, so who's going to be there to meet your child when your child comes home from a day program? and social and recreational programs. There, unfortunately, and maybe as parents we can change this. As individuals reach the age of 22, there just aren't that many social and recreational programs available for them. You'll find amongst the ARCs and other organizations they may offer a lot of programs when your kids are still school age, but there's not a heck of a lot out there, and so maybe that's something that all of us need to think about as far as creating more opportunities for our kids. So here we are with what now? And this is the all important, I think. Number one, align with advocacy groups, and there are advocacy groups like the ARCs, Mass Families Organizing for Change. They're there to help, to offer advice and support. Identify your allies. Very important to know those people that are really there to help you. Share your vision with as many people as you can so that they know what it is that you want for your child and what your child wants for himself or herself. With the families, very, very critical. Just find out people that have gone ahead of you and what they have done and what they found and what works for them and their kids. Pick your best, very important. Raise patience and have patience. Okay, so we're near the end. So here is the link to downloading the timelines that we've just gone over. You have that. And here is a flyer for you to see of the statewide transition conference for parents, which is happening October 3rd, this October 3rd at the Best Western Royal Plaza Hotel in Marlborough, Mass. I just want to thank you all for listening, and I'm ready to answer any questions that you might have. So I have questions. An awful lot of information with you, but if you download a copy of the timelines, you have that information, and we here at the ARC and Support Broker also are here to help in any way you can. We periodically run transition clinics. If anybody's interested in participating, you have the information, the email address, and the telephone number.
Okay, I have one question from Carolyn. And then, from our school obligated to provide supports so that students the 18 to 22 range can have a post-secondary college experience?
Fortunately, schools are not obligated to do that, to have a post-secondary college experience. But it's important, if you think that this is something that your child would benefit from, to try to encourage your school system to look into the ICE program in particular and to become a participant in it.
Okay, and are there specific documents that are essential to keep on file? And the question is, are there specific documents that are essential to keep on file? A lot of paperwork comes through. You're certainly right on that one.
documents that I would think offhand would be any in surveys that were done, progress reports, results of post-secondary assessments, any progress that your kids have made during the school year, work experiences. So I think that those are pretty important.
All right, and from Julie, how different is the timeline for kids with physical disabilities but cognitive impairments?
I think it's the same. Your child probably just has a 504 instead of an IEP, but the process is still the same. It should be the same.
Anybody have questions? Add in. I think we're all set. I want to thank our presenter tonight, Pat Pakos, for her insight and thorough organization of the transition process, so we could just check it off our list. And also Marissa Young, our tech advisor. Thank you for participating tonight. Be sure to keep visiting our website at the ARC so you can learn more about the exciting details of the transition conference coming up this fall, as well as more webinars. We'll be having our next one scheduled is for April 29th, and it's on sexuality. So again, thank you from the ARC, and good night.